All right. There was a guy that just got executed. His name is Nathaniel Woods. And his sister, after he was executed, came up to the governor of Alabama, the people that executed him, and was saying, hey, look, you killed my brother. She basically wanted the governor to answer for what she had done, or give her some answers. I don't know exactly what she wanted from it, but the whole case itself is a complete sketch, a complete picture of the world that you live in, and the fact that you're being controlled every single second of every single day by a cult, a nefarious, ill intent cult, a cult with ill intents. They want you to die. You think you're living? You're not living. You're participating in a slow death at the hands of the Black Death cult. Now, the Black Death cult is living 100%. They're living off of you. Their life is great. You'll see the governor has absolutely zero reaction to having been in charge of a system that put this guy to death. The guy got put to death. Okay, this is his story. First of all, he didn't pull the trigger. There was 3 cops that ended up dying in the incident, but he didn't have a gun. He didn't pull the trigger. And the people who wanted to spare him from the death penalty weren't saying, hey, let him out of jail. I don't think. I think they were saying, hey, just don't kill the guy. He didn't pull the trigger. So he was in a house with his buddy. And this is him back in the day. And the cops showed up to serve a warrant for domestic violence on Nathaniel Woods. Okay? So the cops probably knew that this was a drug house. Nathaniel admitted he was selling drugs out of the house. So the cops couldn't get him on that charge, because if, let's say, for instance, the cops get an anonymous tip, or they know you're selling drugs, but they can't prove it. What they do is they can go knock on your door and, hey, we just want to check it. You don't have to answer the door. So it's not a real efficient way to approach somebody. So what they do is they come over with a warrant. They get a warrant. Now, it doesn't matter if the warrant's expired, doesn't matter if the warrant's for something else, doesn't matter anything about the warrant. There's so many cases that have been pushed through the courts with a bad warrant, with a warrant that was missigned, a warrant that was misexecuted, a warrant that was not properly got, a warrant that was out of date. They don't care. Once they get you in the system through the warrant, that's all they care about. So these cops were probably trying to bust this guy and his buddy on drug charges, had no way of doing it, so they showed up with a warrant for domestic violence, which this guy had out on him. Now, supposedly, he answered the door, said some stuff to them, whatever, maybe even threatened them, it doesn't matter. So they end up coming in the house, and I'm not sure if he was on the floor or if he had his hands up, or he was surrendering. According to him, he was in the act of surrendering. Now, his buddy was asleep on the couch, and his buddy woke up, and there was a rifle there next to him or by him, and one of the cops went for their gun, supposedly, and his buddy just opened fire. Killed 3 cops. 3 Birmingham police officers died from his buddy shooting them. So he was supposedly in the act of surrendering. didn't have a gun, didn't have his hand on a gun, was nowhere near a gun, and his buddy killed 3 cops. So that's his story. Now, why is he getting killed for that? That's what people were asking. Why is he dying for that? There's a whole bunch of reasons, but it all boils down to the Black Death cult being in control of everything. So they said the cops and the prosecutor's Black Death cult member, cop Black Death cult member, judge Black Death cult member, governor Black Death cult member, all of them. So they said, the cops said that Nathaniel was not surrendering. He wasn't surrendering. He pulled the cops into this.
Available to take your call. Please leave a message. Thank you for calling.
So the cops said that he ambushed them. He was part of the ambush. It was just a setup. That's all. So the cops said, oh no, he wasn't surrendering. He was pulling us in. And they said, regardless of that, he was an accomplice because he didn't stop his buddy from shooting the cops. Now, after the fact, when they have you dead, when they have you in custody, when they have you whatever, cops can say whatever they want to. Cops will lie. Cops are encouraged to lie. Cops use every lie in the book to get you any way they can. They will lie. Now, if you lie to a cop, guess what? It's a criminal charge. But cops can lie to anybody. They can say, well, we had a report when they didn't. They can say, we have an anonymous tip when they didn't get one. They can say, we saw him doing this when they didn't see him doing it. They say, well, we didn't hit him when they hit him. Just the lies that cops have told over the years are so vast, you couldn't track them if you wanted to. They lie every single day, all day long, and have no repercussions. So when they say, well, this guy right here wasn't surrendering, he was not surrendering, could be a complete lie on the cops' part. Complete lie. If you remember when Eric Garner got killed by this guy right here, a New York Police Department officer, Eric Garner was choked to death. They had him in a choke hold, and they choked him to death. This guy right here did it. Black Death cult member. So how did the cops get out of this one? They said, no. He wasn't in a chokehold. This guy didn't have Eric Garner in a chokehold. He was restraining Eric Garner with the restraining hold, a restraining maneuver. So everybody looks at the Eric Garner and don't watch it because it's sickening if you watch it. They just kill this guy in broad daylight. I mean, it is sickening. They have him in a chokehold. They literally, he's got him in what's called a rear naked choke. If you watch MMA fighting, it's called a rear naked choke. He's getting choked out. Everybody looks at that and goes, well, Eric got choked to death. Not the cops. No. They say he was being restrained and we had him in a restraining hold. Just like they very easily could have said, no, he wasn't surrendering. No. He wasn't on the ground. He wasn't surrendering. He was setting us up for an ambush. Now, is it true? We don't know because, like I said, cops will lie. Cops will lie till the very end, and they'll keep lying at the end. Okay, so we don't know if the cops were lying about what this guy did, but we do know that his buddy 100% said, I did it. I pulled the trigger. I killed all of them. So in Black Death cult, of course, because the Black Death cult thrives on death, they killed the guy. They killed Nathaniel Woods for just being there. Okay, for being there. All right? And they're doing this to send you a message and to send me a message that you cannot touch police officers. You cannot mess with the police. Okay, you can't do anything against these guys. You cannot do one thing against them. What happened? In the Eric Garner case, the guy wasn't charged with anything, choked him to death in broad daylight on camera, and gets no charges filed against him, of course. Now, if you are just in the room when a cop gets killed, you get put to death. But cops in broad daylight can choke you to death. No charges. This guy's in a room when his buddy shoots some cops and he gets put to death. Oh, and by the way, not only was the guy who choked, this guy who choked Eric Garner to death, not charged, no other cops were charged as accomplices, of course. They had nothing happened to them while they stood around and watched this guy kill Eric Garner. But of course, if this guy stands around and watches his buddy kill cops, well, he gets the death penalty. So that's his story in terms of how he interacted with the Black Death cult. He sad case. And like I said, I don't think a lot of people were saying, hey, let him out of jail. But they were saying, just don't kill the guy. Give him a chance. So anyway, after he's dead, his sister goes up to the Capitol. This is called the Capitol building in Alabama, to confront the governor. Now, if you notice in the Capitol building, there's tons of voyous. They're flying these quote unquote flags, this fabric that has voyous all over it. So whenever you see voyous, okay, voyous is any line, dot, or color made by man, be aware, you're dealing with Black Death cult. Now what they do is they take the voyous and they turn it into symbols. So you can interpret the symbols in a number of ways. But what you have to understand, in my opinion, is that these symbols come out of voyous. Voyous is any line, dot, or color made by man. And then they form those into symbols. So they form the voyous into symbols. So they're using voyous all up in these markers right here, markers for voyous. Then, of course, you have a statue, which is made by man through lines, through chipping out lines on a piece of stone and creating a three-dimensional line work. If you do it on a two-dimensional surface, it's a drawing using lines. If you do it in a three-dimensional surface, it's a sculpture using lines. Now, the material that made the sculpture is not voyous. That's what can be confusing, is the material that this flag is made of is not voyous. It's the colors and the dots and the lines on it that are the voyous. So anyway, Nathaniel Woods' sister goes up to confront the governor, and she has the perfect Black Death cult response to her.
It was one of those days. Let's set the stage for
Here
you.
she is.
The governor held a typical news conference.
First of all, this is her right here. This is the woman in the background. She looks like your grandma, by the way. She could not violence you. She could not violence you, but all of her thugs, they can violence you. Any one of these guys back here, even if he's non-violent, he calls in his thug to violence you.
Conference to call for complete participation in the upcoming 2020 U.S. Census.
And the census, by the way, is mandatory. They want to count. They want to know what their cattle, what their herd, the size of their herd. They want to know what it is.
She said participation,
They being the Black Death cult,
could make or break this state.
There she is, Grandma Ivy. Yeah, we all support her. This is Black Death cult attire right here. If you're wearing a suit and tie, you are showing other Black Death cult members, hey, I'm with you. I'm with you, 100%.
In terms of congressional representation and the $13 billion in federal aid Alabama receives every year. Now, away from the podium, I tried to ask her about the effect the coronavirus might have on census taking this year. And this is what ensued.
This is where Nathaniel Woods' sister comes up to her and starts talking to her.
Governor, can you speak to the coronavirus and how that might affect the census take?
Now, this woman sets up everything for her. This woman is called a handler. She sets up all of her appointments. She's always there with her. She makes sure that nobody asks her a question that she can't already answer. She'll shut you down. And if she needs to, she'll call a thug in, a cop, a bodyguard, a security officer, Capitol Police, whatever, to violence you, okay? This is a violent individual. This is a violent individual right here. Grandma is a violent individual.
And people being asked to open their door. Every individual now.
Look at her, raise her eyebrows, and look over with absolute disdain. Absolute disdain at the woman who wants to ask her a question, who's not in the press, who doesn't have it already planned out what they're going to say. Look at the disdain on her face. She. That's the thing about these Black Death Cult members. They hate you. They hate you. They don't like you. They do not. The people in control of you don't even like you. They don't want to be around you. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to do anything other than do a census, know that you're there so they can count you to make their money. That's it. That's all they care about, getting their money. That's it. They don't care about you. They could care less about you. Excuse me, you can't be here and talk. See, now notice this guy swoops in. This is security right here. Security comes in, and notice how nice. Oh, excuse me, ma'am, you can't. Excuse me, ma'am, you can't talk to. Excuse me, ma'am. No, if this woman did anything, they would throw her on the ground. They would restrain her with violence. 100%. That's part of the ruse. That's one of the biggest parts of the ruse. Is, hey, I'm a nonviolent person. I'm just a sweet old grandma. I'm a nonviolent person. I'm just a sweet old grandma. I'm not. No, this is a violent individual. This is a violent individual. This is a violent individual. Don't let them fool you. These are violent individuals. I'm just going to explain to you why you can't talk to the governor. You can't talk to her. You can't talk to the governor. You're a normal person. You just vote and you take what we give you.
You killed my brother. Governor, you killed my brother. He's an innocent. I'm so sorry. You guys can email me. He's an innocent man and you killed him.
See, here she gets escorted off by 1, 2, 3 individuals around her. Now, this is Black Death Cult. You go into an area that's guarded and you don't let anybody in. So you don't say a word to them. You don't have to address their question. You don't have to worry about what they're doing. You don't have to care about anything about them. You just take up your security, your violent force, and you go hide. You go to your fortress and you hide. Now look, they go behind the closed door, close the door, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. You go to your door, into your secret room, into your private area, you hide, and then if, Lord forbid, if this woman tried to get in this door to go talk to the governor, guess what would happen? She would get violenced. She would get 100% violenced. So don't let these people fool you. Don't let this individual fool you. Oh, I'm just grandma. No, grandma's violent. She's a violent individual. Violent individual, violent individual, violent individual, violent. They're all violent. Now, the irony is, of course, is that she can't violence you herself. She can't violence you herself. So how does she violence you? Oh, she violences you using this guy right here. Using this NYPD officer, she violences you. That's how she violences you. She can't violence you herself. She's an old woman. How's she going to violence you? She's going to call in her thugs. Here's one of her thugs right here. Here's another one of her thugs. Plainclothes cops, plainclothes police officers, plainclothes security guards. Here they are right here. And if you don't listen to what they have to say, they will violence you. Now notice, in the exchange, the governor said nothing. Not one word. She did not say one word to this woman whose brother got killed. Not one word did she say to her. That's important, because this is how the Black Death cult operates. They know they have complete control over you. They know that if you do anything to them, you will get violenced. So they know they don't have to answer one word to you. Not one word. They don't have to say anything at any point in time that they don't want to, because they're going to violence you. And if you attempt to violence them, or if you're in the same room when they're getting violenced, when this guy gets violenced, guess what happens to you? You die. You get killed. This is the only thing that the Black Death cult has. The threat of violence, going into violence, the threat of death, going into death. That's how they operate. So this woman shouldn't have to talk to you, because if you do anything next to her saying, hey, I'm going to come into that room that you just went into, she's going to say, don't come in here, because you're going to get violenced. And then guess what happens? You walk into the room, and guess what happens to you? You get violenced. You get violenced by this guy right here. You get violenced by this guy right here. So the threat of violence into violence, the threat of death into death. The threat of violence to this guy was, we're police officers, we're coming here with a warrant. Then if you resist the warrant, you get violenced. And the threat of death is, if you touch any of our police officers, you could get killed. And guess what? He got killed just for being in the same room, just for being there when it happened. That's what he got killed for being there when cops got killed. So he got threatened with violence, into violence. They put him on the ground, handcuffed him, whatever. Then the threat of death, we're going to kill you for what you did, into death, is such a strong reminder to you of what the Black Death cult is and how the Black Death cult operates. They control every aspect of your life, and they're going to keep doing it forever. Forever. There's a saying, WWE, then, now, forever. This is how the Black Death cult wants to operate. They've been here. They're here right now. And if they have their way, they will be here doing what they're doing, violencing people, killing people, threatening people with violence, violencing people all over the place, killing people every single day in a multitude of ways. They will be here. Then, they've been here. Now, they're here. And forever, they're going to be here. So, in my opinion, we need to wake up to how these people are duping you, number one, by making you think, oh, I'm just an old lady. Oh, it's okay. I'm just here to help you. They have a multitude of lies on how they get over. We have to see through these lies and understand how they're operating. They're operating with something that I call voiju, which is any line, dot, or symbol made by man. They put up that symbol, and then they put up a figurehead, this woman, and they dupe you left and right into doing exactly what they want you to do. They control you 100% of the time, all day, every day. Then, now, and forever, they're going to control you through the threat of violence into violence, the threat of death into death. So if we let these people continue to violence us, and by the way, we cannot overcome their violence with violence. Like I said, if she, who got repelled right here by these people, repelled, pushed back, under the threat of violence, if she tried to walk into this room and confront this woman, or God forbid, tried to hurt her, she would be violenced beyond any measure you can imagine. Look, her brother got violenced to death for just being in the same room. So she knows already, hey, look, I'm not going to go back there. She knows that. So you can't use violence against them, because they are masters of violence. They have created the most violent instruments on the planet. They have created the most violent ways to subdue you, to control you, to kill you that have ever been known in the history of man. Created by the Black Death Cult. All these devices are created by the Black Death Cult. And she knows, this woman knows, because her brother was a victim of the Black Death Cult. She knows 100%. Eric Garner's sister knows 100%. You don't mess with these people. You do not violence them. So you can't beat them with violence. We cannot beat them with violence. We have to find another way to address the lies, to address the violence, to address the control, so that we can live free. And until we stop the Black Death Cult, until we get them out of power, until we get them out of control of us, we are going to be continually controlled by them. Then, they've been controlling us for 40,000 years now. Now, the year 2020, they're still controlling us forever. The year go into the future, 5,090. Go into the year 7,099. Go into the year 10,020. They want to control you forever.